Hi, welcome to our first online session for our 302 course. Um, so it was wonderful meeting everybody on Tuesday, and hopefully we all got to see a little bit about what our subject is researching and talking about, as well as got to participate in our parlor activity, which is a little silly, I know, but a lot of fun still. Um, and it's demonstrative of what work we're going to be doing today. So what we're looking at is actually finding those conversations in our specific disciplines. Now, of course, you're all are in different disciplines and you're all going to be writing different things. Uh, but, well, for that reason, what you can go through and do is utilize that library subject guide, and I really want you to start to delve deep into it, see where those conversations are happening, see what they're happening with, and start to make a note of it. As you noticed in the parlor activity, when you don't go and gather the conversations happening all over, you end up missing some things and you end up not having any idea what the slight differences in some of the questions that has been asked to these scholars and these people having this conversation. So we want to make sure that we don't fall into that same trap. And the way that we're going to do that is our research logs. As you will notice from when we glanced at all of the assignments and everything that you did before class on Tuesday, the major assignment is this research log. There's 3 iterations of it. You'll keep building upon it because as we go through life and the world and we research these conversations, they're happening all over the place. And it's always so very interesting to me to actually notice how the conversation switches depending on who the audience is and depending on who the authors are, right? The medical field versus those scholars that are kind of associated with the medical field versus people who are writing about such a thing for the general public. It just ends up being really fascinating how the information ends up being relayed and what information ends up being relayed, to be honest with you, what ends up getting cut out and what's not. So, one of the things that we're going to do is try to track this conversation throughout 3 different things. So, your first research log is really looking at professional organizations and advocacy groups. Who or what are the professional organizations associated with your topic? So, if you're researching something like climate change, just for an easy one, who are the organizations or what are the organizations that are out there that are doing work on that topic's behalf? Uh, it's going to be that way for each one of your topics, right? If you choose, oh, probably topics nobody will choose, right? Gun control and abortion and legalized marijuana, right? A few years ago, that's what everybody ended up writing their research papers on. So with these, right, there's very definitive groups that are professional organizations, sometimes affiliated with academia, sometimes not. Um, Sometimes they're a lobby group for them. Sometimes they're experts in the field. Sometimes they're more general people, right? Who work in the field perhaps, um, maybe don't study the field, all different sorts of ways that people can begin to organize a professional group. So find out who your professional groups are. Find out what kind of topics are going on. Once we find the professional groups and the advocacy groups, we can start to follow those groups and see what conversations are actually occurring. You may have an idea as to what about climate change you want to talk about, but just listen a little bit. Just follow the conversation, follow their social media. I really, really suggest doing the advice thing for a directed Google search where you will get notifications about when your topic is used or when certain keywords end up being used. That's really handy and helpful to see what is going on in the conversation because quite possibly, and often to be honest with you, what you end up writing about is not your kind of big idea, but a much more narrow, nuanced argument aspect of it. Because that's what's actually occurring right now. And that's what we get to have a conversation about and provide some sort of new offering into that conversation, which is, of course, the end goal. So, go back through, look at the research log a little bit closer. You'll notice that you need 8 to 10 sources, 8 to 10 articles from these professional groups, advocacy groups. That is going to be your first research log. And now we will start to enter into that conversation. We'll start to find that conversation that we are interested in pursuing and looking at. See you later.